So you guys, today our topic again is all about listings, preparing for that listing meeting. And we have brought somebody in from our market center who is very near and dear to our hearts, Annie Staebler. Thank you so much for taking the time to pour into the agents here. I'm looking forward to everything that you have to say. You will find Annie is an amazing presence on social media. If you haven't followed her journey, it's a great place to be, to watch and learn and see how she interacts with her clients, just kind of start to finish. She does an amazing job of building her social media presence. And then once she builds that presence, she does a great job delivering the goods as a real estate agent, and the proof is in the numbers. So I want to share, Annie, you are the #1 independent agent in our office. You're number 4, the top 3 then are teams. So as an independent agent, #1 in our market center with a total volume, you guys, of 13 million for the past 12 months. 5.5 of that comes from her listing business. She's done 11 listings this last rolling 12 months, and her production this year is up 90%. So she's got, and to hear Annie talk about it, she's just doing the deal and doing the work. So super excited to hear from you, Annie, about what it is you do, and hearing you drop your words of wisdom here, and open to questions. So when those come, we'll take them and share. One last ask, if you could turn your video on for us, that would be awesome. And Annie, I'm going to let you get going here.
Okay, so thank you for your patience while we worked through these technical difficulties. And I think we might still have some as we go through this. So we'll do our best. But I'm gonna share my screen in a second here. Before I do that, just a little quick intro here. This is not going to be a listing presentation training. It's more me talking about sort of my systems and processes for taking something to market. So hopefully that is what you signed up for, because that's what you're going to get. And I'm going to just share my screen so we can get into the training and get you guys about your day. Just do the desktop one, Brett. There. Okay. Right. All right. Stand by.
You're so close.
I don't know why it's just very, very slow. My computer was not being friendly with the TV, so I'm waiting for it to get into present mode. And if it doesn't, we might just have to, there we go.
This is one of the joys of Zoom life, right? Is that you come ready and you're ready to rock and roll, and you have all of these silences sometimes that crop up because of our technological life that we're filling here. So here we go.
However, this is like very on brand for me. Nothing in my life ever goes like according to plan. So it's perfectly fine. Okay. So now I just need to move this so that I can see. All right, so I'm gonna just get right into it. There we go. So like I said, this is not a listing presentation training, partly because I don't actually really do a formal listing presentation, but also partly because I was asked to talk about sort of the steps that I take to get it from like a lead comes in to a live listing. So that is what I'm gonna cover with you today. And I would say, like, interrupt me, jump in, ask questions. Like, I would prefer this be a conversation instead of me just sitting up here and talking at you in the screen for an hour, but there's going to be a lot of this, hold please, as we move to the next slide. All right, so a little bit about me before we get into things, to just sort of give you an idea of where I'm coming from, I have been a full-time agent with KW since 2018. Every year has grown a little bit. I think actually my second year was down, but the last 2 years have been very good for me. This year I am so far just a little under 10.9 million closed. And I've just got one listing still sitting out there. So if anyone has any buyers, bring them my way, right? We're all in that boat right now. So 625,000 just listed at the moment. I've worked with 10 listings and 7 buyers, the kind of the breakout of my business to this point. And my average price point is about $679 this year. Where my business comes from, I primarily work with people I know, which is sort of why I don't have a formal listing presentation. I'm very casual in my business. I mean, I feel like I'm professional. It works for me, but I'm very casual. I'm not going to show up to someone's house in a pantsuit and give them a PowerPoint presentation like this on why they should hire me to list their house. Over half of my business comes straight from family and friends, people I know. And then those people are referring business to me. The second biggest portion of my business comes from referrals from my family and friends, but also from the network of agents that I have built on social media. I've connected with agents all over the country that are referring business to me and me to them. So we have that here at KW, but there's a whole world outside of us too. And that's been really profitable for me. And then just over 12.5% of my business this year has come direct from social media. When I say direct from social media, that is the closest to a cold lead that my business entertains. And most of the time, I would consider those warm leads because by the time they get to me and where they're reaching out to me, they've been following me on social media and they kind of know how I operate anyways. If you follow me on social media, you know I do a lot of educating and behind the scenes and that sort of stuff on social media. So that is sort of why people kind of know who I am by the time that they reach out to me. But these people on social media this year, they found me through hashtags. They found me through other people that they know on social media. And so that's where that business is coming from. So that's a little bit about me. And now let's get into the process that I take. And before I get into this, I sort of just want to acknowledge the fact that this process is kind of always being refined and evolving for me. And I think that that's something that I've learned from other really successful people in this industry is that sometimes what's been working in the past isn't working because of a market shift or because your clientele is different. Right now, a lot of my clients are basically me, right? There's someone who's maybe selling their first home and moving up into a bigger home, or, I've got a lot of my parents' friends right now that are downsizing into ranch homes and things like that. So this is what's working for me in my business right now, but I definitely anticipate that as I go on in my business and grow and change, my process is also going to kind of evolve and change. So you also have to kind of give it a little bit of time and you learn something on every transaction, as they say. So you learn kind of what's working and what's not. First step is pretty obvious, right? The prospect makes contact with us. And again, most of these people are people I know. So they're calling me or they're texting me, sending me a DM on Instagram. I run into them at a soccer game, whatever that contact looks like. That's always the first step in the process is someone says, hey, we're thinking about selling our house this year. And so then once that contact happens, and that's something that I had to learn kind of too, is that when you're new, especially, and someone mentions that they are thinking about selling their house, sometimes you're afraid to be that person that jumps up and says like, oh, hey, I can help you with that. And so I guess I just have, it depends on the person, right? So sometimes it helps me to just be like, maybe I make a joke about helping them or something like that, or, start asking them a couple of questions. But it just comes with time and having those conversations where you get more comfortable after that contact, taking it to the next step in the process, which is to schedule that seller consult. So that's the first thing I want to do after they've told me that they want to sell their house is get something on the books. So that there's no opportunity for someone else to step in. But get something on the books. I generally will give them a couple dates and times that I know work for me. because my schedule is so crazy just with kids and having to, like, as soon as school pickup happens, like, I'm pretty much done the rest of the day. I can't really meet with you at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. It's just not going to happen. So I usually provide, like, I'll say, you know, I've got Thursday and Friday from like 9 to 1 open. What's a good time that works for you? And let them sort of pick within that window. And eventually we get something confirmed. And then we move on to the next step in the process, which is that I send them my homework email. So this is like a pre-listing email. Like, some people will drop off a pre-listing packet. I don't do a ton of printed stuff just in general in my business. Most of what I do is kind of digital. And I find that that works well for the people I'm working with. But again, this is one of those things that needs to be adapted depending on who you're working with. Like, if I know that I'm working with someone that's not very digital, and then I've got to drop something off at their house, then I'll do that. But this is sort of in general what's working for me. And within this email, and on the next slide, I'll show you what that email template looks like. I include a link to my seller survey. I include the condition report, and then I include a checklist that I've created for them preparing your home. And it's primarily things that I've gathered from my photographers. So preparing your home to look good in photos, because these are also the things that are going to make it look good for showings and things like that. And I find when you send it ahead of time, a lot of people are just like feeling gung ho, and then they try to get the house ready for you. So I don't have to do as much kind of walking around and saying, put this away, put that away, do this, do that, because they kind of already know. So depending on how much time we have before that appointment happens. But email templates have really been a game changer for me. So I don't know how many of you use email templates in your business, but did you know that you can create email templates in Gmail? Okay, Amber knew. You did not. I can show you how if you want to. If we were on my computer, I would show you right now, but this computer is a little touchy and slow, but it's super easy. And it's like, so those emails that you're sending constantly, the lender recommendations, that this is the comfort, this email confirming the time and sending all of this stuff, you spend so much time recreating that if you don't just save the template, and then it's just super easy. You just put it up, you make your changes that you need to make, and then you go. But so here is what that email of mine says, and I'm happy to share the actual template with you electronically too. But so it just confirms the date and time we're meeting, and it sets them up for the fact that this is the reason I'm sending you these links, so that we can maximize our time together and I can prepare. I need to know a little bit about your house. I need to know a little bit about your goals, because it's not the same for everyone, right? So some people's goal is to make the most money possible, and that's probably most sellers' goal, but sometimes it's just like, we got to get out of this house in 30 days, and then your strategy is a little bit different. So, and then I tell them that I've attached the condition report and the tips for getting the house ready for pictures, and give them a little bit of an idea of what we're going to talk about when I get there. We're going to take a walk through the house and talk about if there's anything that we need to do. But I also am going to need some information from them that most people just don't have at the ready. So this just gives them a heads up to say, get this prepared for me. And then we can hit the ground running during that meeting. And I'll show you that survey is not actually linked there. So let me see if I can get out of this to show you that survey. So this is a survey. I'm sure you could do this in Command. I didn't, because I did this before Command. But it's just, this is a landing page that I created that asks some questions about the house. So obviously I'm asking kind of general questions, the contact information, the phone numbers, the address. I want to know their motivations for selling. I want to know, are you staying local? Do you need help finding a new home? Target time frame. What are you going to do if it doesn't sell? Those types of questions. I'm also asking them, because again, even though I know these people, I want to know what's important to them in an agent, and am I going to be the right fit for them? And I will tell you, probably 9 times out of 10, the answer to this question that most people give is that they want someone that's going to be honest and transparent throughout the process. And I don't know what that tells you about our industry and how people have been treated by agents in the past, but more often than not, that is the answer I get to that question. So fine for me because I'm that, so that's easy, but it continues to come up. And so I thought it worth saying. And I also then ask some fun questions, like what's their favorite coffee order? What do they like to cheers with? And the reason for that is because then I can level up my experience for them a little bit. I can take them coffee if we're going on showings, or I can show up to the listing presentation with coffee if it's at 8 a.m. And why do I want to know what they want to cheers with? Because when we get that accepted offer, I want to be able to drop off a bottle of wine if that's their favorite thing, or a 6-pack of Spotted Cow or whatever it is. And that's always, it's just a kind of one of those fun things, and it's thrown in the middle of the survey because people are like, wait, what? What's this random question? What does that have to do with my house? But, and then, I always tell people you're selling a lifestyle, you're not selling the house. So this is where I'm going to start to ask them questions and try to get some insight into, like, what do you love about this house? What types of things would you change about this house? Because those are the things that buyers are going to maybe want to change. So like if you had $10,000 and you would use it to like renovate your kitchen, well, then when I come look at your kitchen, I'm going to look at it and go like, okay, what can we do to make this kitchen better for like $500 to put it on the market, so that maybe we're going to lessen that objection from buyers. Because if you hate it, then buyers might also hate it. And converting something into more functional. Right now, a lot of people are answering this question with like a dining room space that we're then going to stage as an office or something like that. But that's where some of these questions are coming from. This survey is like the bulk of my prep for this meeting. And so it's really been critical for me to get these answers from sellers, so that when I go to the meeting, we're having the right conversations and I'm giving them the best value that I can give them. And if I get someone on the phone, if someone calls me and says, hey, Annie, we want to, sell our house, I will often just go through this survey and type in the answers for them on my own while I have them on the phone, rather than sending it to them in an email separately to do later. I've just found like people are busy, right? So from a time saving standpoint, this has worked really well for me to send this survey. And if you don't know how to set up a landing page or don't want to set up a landing page, you could do it as a Google form. You could send it just in the body of your email and ask them to respond in the email. There's a ton of different ways that you could do something like this. And we have some very talented techie people in our company that would be happy to, I'm sure, set this up for you. And then just going on down here with this survey, it's kind of the stats of the house and stuff that I'm going to need later to when we list, like gas and electric. Do you have a septic system? Are you on sewer and water, fireplace? Just this is kind of more MLS data points here. Then at the very end, I have added a question that when I talk about you learn things as you go along. I never used to ask this question because I thought it really does not matter what these people want to sell their house for, right? It matters what it's worth. But then Bruce Gallagher told me one day that was stupid. He didn't say that. He just said, he just pointed out that I should have asked that question. And that's why I lost a listing one day. Because that is something that's important to the seller, right? So while it might not matter that what they want to sell it for, it is helpful for you to know going in, what do these people think that this house is worth, so that you can right set expectations. So it's just kind of like what we talked about in our meeting yesterday too, about how we're having to reset expectations for sellers. Knowing if, like, for example, I'm going on a listing, a seller consultation tomorrow, where I was just reviewing their seller survey this morning, and the price that they think it would be acceptable for them to sell their home at is like significantly under what it's actually worth. So there's a situation where, I can go to them and tell them, just so you know, you're probably going to end up very happy at the end of this. And, your buying process might be a little bit different than what you think it is now, because you could end up netting a lot more for your home. But then on the flip side, I've had people tell me that an acceptable selling price is way bananas outside high from what they can expect. And then I've had to go into those meetings and just have that conversation to say, I understand that this is what you would like to net from your, this is the price that you would like to sell your home for. But unfortunately, the data right now doesn't support that. So, yeah, so that is something, thank you, Bruce, that has been helpful for me, in setting proper expectations. And like we've talked about a million times, and this is a conversation that we all have at that listing meeting, is that it's really not, for a while anyways, it was kind of like anyone's guess, like what number are we going to throw on this house? And it's going to go for crazy amounts. So now we're having to, as agents, refine that again and get a little bit more accurate and explain to sellers that, hey, guess what? For like the last 18 months, we had no freaking idea what your house was going to sell for. Like, no idea.
Can I just say thank you for saying that out loud?
Yeah.
Because I was a new agent coming in February, and that's one of my biggest questions to my teammates, is like, what do I do with this? And like, not because they don't know, but it's just like.
No. Really, yes, truly. And I always was kind of very honest in telling sellers that over the last couple of years too, that like, this is where I think it should be, but like, we might get surprised and it might go way over. But my job as an agent is to make sure that whatever number we choose, I can support when it comes to an appraisal. And if someone wants to offer us a gajillion dollars over that, then, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it and try to find the data to support it. But I'm not going to put it on the market $50,000 higher than it should be, just because it might go for that. So anyways, so that was a question I added at the end that has been helpful to me. And now I'm going to try to go back to my presentation without ruining. How do I get back there? Help.
I think it's right in the middle there, Annie, preparing for a
I
listing.
know that's the problem. I can't get, it's stuck behind this. How do I move this? There we go. Do you like how I actually put the emphasis in that? Like it took power. I'm so weird. All right, let's do this. Back to this. All right. Now you need to go away. Just
You're willing to share that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I can send that to you. So this is if you want to check out that survey more in depth, this is the website that it's located at, if you want to write that down.
Will you share the presentation?
Yeah, I think it'll be, yeah, it's all recorded, but I'll share my Canva presentation with you if you want, and then you'll have all of this.
We'll get it all out to you guys, for sure.
Okay, so that's the seller survey. Usually people fill that seller survey out pretty quick. It actually doesn't take very long. And they usually just get it done real quick and it just goes right into my email. And then I print it off and I make notes all over it. And that's sort of what I use to get started. But while I'm waiting for that, then I'll take if these people are not already in command as contacts, I take all their information, I get them into command and get the opportunity into command. And this is something I started doing pretty much like right when opportunities came out in command. And I will say like, if you don't already do this, I mean, you have to get it in when you're getting to the contract phase anyway. So it's just kind of anticipatory that you're going to get it in there anyway. And it's a really nice way to just sort of like track your pipeline and track what you have going on. And like, I can take then that seller survey when it comes into my email and download it from my email and just put it right into there. So I've got everything in one space. I'm obnoxious, so I do still also keep everything on my desktop just because I have like fears of like the whole world going crazy and me losing everything that's on the web someday, but that's another conversation. But yeah, so I mean, that's the next step is to get the opportunity into command and make my notes in there and kind of update that as we go along. And then once I get that seller survey back and I have kind of all of their, I mean, I can start this before I get that survey back, but once I have all of their data back to me, then I will start running the CMA. This is my house, yeah.
Well, it's just terrible.
Thank you. It is. It's awful. Yeah, no, I am, yes, I am very, very blessed. I found this house through some soccer friends. I never would have gotten it if it hit the market. So
Right.
perks of being a real estate agent and people knowing it is they come to you when they say, we're gonna list our house. And then you say, no, you're not. I'm gonna buy that house. So that worked for me. So there's more than one perk to not being a secret agent. People will bring you opportunities. CMA obviously is a total separate training that lots of people have different ways of doing it. I look at Zillow because buyers and sellers look at Zillow. I obviously use the MLS. I also like to use RPR and then kind of pull information of what the seller has told me. This is a great time to have conversations with other agents too, to find out, like, I could go and I could say, like, hey, Katie, I'm working on a listing that's near Pewaukee Lake and they have neighborhood lake access. How much value do you think that adds to a house versus like this other little 3-bedroom ranch that didn't have lake access? Because she does a lot of stuff there. So so the CMA is the next step. And I don't pinpoint an exact number. I know most people probably like to do it this same way, where you sort of give the sellers a range for a variety of reasons. But then it can be adjusted too. So like if you're going in there thinking like, oh, there's a $20,000 range of where this thing could be listed, and then you walk in and it's like immaculate, perfect, everything's done. Well, then you would kind of tell them, here's the range, and I think you'd be on the higher end of this range. Or if there's work that needs to be done, then you adjust accordingly once you get there. But I like to go into that seller consultation with a pretty good idea of what the house is worth, which most of us can do from just having been in the market and pulling this data and all of that. And again, like, even though I'm working with people that I know, I don't always know their homes very well. I'm not in and out of their homes every day. And you start to kind of see someone's house a little bit differently when you're thinking about putting it on the market for them than you do when you're I sold my parents' house last summer and I looked at it totally different when I put my listing agent hat on to like, what was I going to promote about this house than I did growing up in the house, living there every day. So adjustments always can be made. Once I have kind of all of that prep work done, then it's time for the seller consult. This is sort of like my just top line seller consult. I walk through the house. I know a lot of people don't walk through the house with the seller because it's a waste of time. And they're going to tell you everything they love and where their kid wrote on the wall and all this. I plan on an hour for my seller consults because this is how I do business. And I want to hear those stories from people. I just have found that it helps me in the process of dealing with people, because if they're starting to tell me all of those stories, then I kind of know that like, this is going to be an emotional thing for them. And I'm going to have to temper that a little bit as we go through the process. So I walk through with them. I try to move it along as quickly as I can, but I talk through that seller survey that they filled out and kind of clarify all the information, make sure that I am understanding everything correctly. I always have questions. Like if someone tells me they have lake access, well, then I'm going to have questions about like whether it's deeded or how does that work, and like all of this stuff that buyers are going to ask. And then I kind of explain to them the timeline. Again, one of the questions in that seller survey is like, when do you want to move? What are you going to do if you don't move in that timeline? So if someone comes to me and says that they want to be out of the house and, they want to be in a new house by January, and it's now the middle, almost end of October, then I have to have a conversation with them about how quickly we need to move on things and like what they can expect and what days on market are, all that sort of stuff. Which leads into discussing kind of the market conditions and the comparable properties for their house. I always give them, I always like to ask the sellers about specific comps, because like if the house across the street from them recently sold and they know that neighbor really well, they've been in and out of that house, they can often tell me things that I don't know from just looking at the MLS. And I like to ask them kind of how they feel like their house compares to some of these houses too. Again, that's kind of about expectations, and it's sort of about like, well, this is kind of what a buyer is going to look at it like. So market conditions and like what I talk about there is, you know, people's, the days on market, how many buyers, you know, the typical things that we're going to be, that people are going to ask you about, right? So it's nothing earth shattering, but different things might be important to different people. And so that's where knowing kind of what you're walking into with the sellers and what their goals are, I know what I need to touch on there. Because if making the most money is what's important to them, then the market conditions at one time of year might be more favorable than another time of year. So just all kinds of different things to discuss there. And then I start to talk to them about the marketing aspect of it and the ideal, who I see as the ideal buyer for their house and how we're going to reach them. Who were they when they bought the house, and kind of talk about all of this type of thing. And then we talk about the price range, and I ask them if they're, you know, ready to go. And sometimes people are coming to me 6 months before they're ready, and that's fine. I encourage that because I want to start having these conversations. And so I'm not going to get listing paperwork signed 6 months ahead of time, but I can get the commitment from them and then kind of stay in touch with them in a fashion that is allowing them to kind of ask me questions, check in on the process. Like, you know, hey, how's the painting going? Do you need me to recommend a painter for you? Or, you know, whatever they need. I mean, everyone needs carpets cleaned. Everyone needs windows cleaned. You know, different people need different things, but that's the type of thing that I can do over time for them if they're not ready to go like tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, so someone that does that like longer term, 6 months out, especially now, so then you might have to revisit what the market is then
Yep.
doing.
Yes,
Like
and that's a great
time.
point. And that is something too, that, right, asking that question of like, when do you want to get your house on the market? Because if you're talking about selling it in like May instead of now in October, I just need you to know that the values could be different now. And that's why we're talking about a range, because, you know, 350 to 375 is where you sit in the range right now. Chances are in 6 months, it's not going to change like crazy drastically, but there could be a variation. And we just don't know what's going to happen 6 months out, right? We don't know what's going to happen with the economy, with people's jobs, with like COVID right now, with all of this stuff. There's still so much uncertainty happening that I can't tell you for sure this is going to be the number in 6 months. But sometimes people are ready earlier than they think they're going to be ready. And so it's just helpful for them to have that kind of dollar amount in their head. And I always kind of tell them, like, if you're looking at a significant distance in the future to sell your house in, I would sort of plan on the lower end of this range, just so that you're not going to buy a house based on selling your house at 375 and then you're only going to get 350 for it. You'd rather be surprised on the positive end of that. But yes, yeah, that's a good point. And that's part of the whole conversation. And so like my whole seller consultation, it is very much like this. It's a conversation. It's a lot of Q&A and a lot of questions get asked. And if I'm being honest, it's probably one of the areas where I need to improve my game. I probably need to practice more scripted answers and like just having that information at my fingertips. But there's always something to work on. So
Especially this time of year where it's like, should we wait? The holidays are coming.
Yeah.
Maybe just sit on it till
Yeah.
spring. It's like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and that's too where like working with people I know is helpful for me in that regard, because unless somebody has to move, I mean, unpopular opinion, right? Like the real estate gods might strike me with lightning for saying this, but unless somebody has to move, like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, if you have 3 little kids at home, I am not going to recommend that you sell your house between Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Right.
Because that will be a disaster. That will be a nightmare for you. Everyone will be stressed out. I don't need that. You don't need that. So I'm not going to recommend that.
Mhm.
As much as I would love to do some business in Q4, I'm just not going to recommend that. So did you have something?
At what point, or when you do the listing price range, do you also give them like seller rent sheets or like estimate of what their net person?
Yeah, I always, yep, we talk about that. I usually just use the Hocus Title app, like on my phone when I'm there, and then send them afterwards in my like recap email of like, here's what we talked about. Here's I'll send them like, I'll say, here, I'll text you this app to download, or I'll give them my like, my seller net proceeds spreadsheet. I just wanted to see if, yes, I will share, Katie, my document for getting your home ready for pictures too. So yeah, so that's, again, like this is a very, the consult is very fluid for me, and it's like very different from person to person. But the one thing that's consistent is like, it's very conversational for me. I do not bring a printed presentation. I don't go through it on my computer. I just sit and have a conversation with them. Seller folder is another place that I could really improve my business and kind of have plans to next year, because I am inconsistent with what I put in the folder and what I give to people, because different people want different things. So again, it's worked for me so far, but that's not to say that I won't be adapting and changing and improving and getting better as things go on. How do I do that?
Yeah. Especially signing.
Yeah. I mean, if you can't tell, Tracy was asking, how do I ask for commitment? So I am not hardcore. I am like a really terrible salesperson, terrible. So generally it's like a very casual kind of off the cuff, like, does this all sound good? Like that all sounds good. Like you're ready to go. Like, should I can draft this up. So more recently, most of my sellers this year have been like ready to go right away. Cause people are like, well, I'm going to sell my house this year. Like it's time, right? So like they're ready to go. And so you can put something in delayed status for up to 3 weeks, right? So if we're in that 3-week window, I'm like, they're signing the paperwork like that week. Like I'm going to go home and I'm going to draft it and I'm going to send it to them.
And can I just interrupt for a quick minute? I love, Annie, that you say that you're not a great salesperson, but what you just shared with us, that's a close when you say, are you ready to go? So Annie practices the new school of sales, where she's super consultative and she brings value at every step along the way. So, and she's super humble. So God bless you. Love that. And you close kind of regularly. So
what I will tell you is that my first job out of college was working for a national home builder called Pulte Homes, which some of you who've been in other markets may be familiar with them. And they have an excellent training program. And I really learned the art of a tie down. Do you guys know what a tie down is?
No.
Okay. So a tie down is when you're having a conversation with someone and then you say something to them like, oh my gosh, like this family room is just like humongous. Wouldn't you agree? And then they're like, oh yeah. And you get them to continually say like yes to you, but it's not like cheesy. It's not salesy. It's not, you just get them to continually agree with you. And then by the end of it, you're like, okay, you ready to go? Yeah, ready to go.
And your first that survey, when you ask the price, what do you want from me and what price? Those are tie downs, you guys. Those are very good strategic questions to get people to think of working with you.
So you're just creating agreement along the way. And so now I just do it in my everyday life and I don't even think about it because I just became so like natural to me. I do it to my kids all the time. Like, or like, don't you think like that's crazy. Don't you think?
That's a great idea,
right? Like, yeah, like, it's just like, you do it. You guys do it every day and you just don't even realize you're doing it. That's what it's called. So,
do you ever used to come like with because there's some teams and whatever that come like, contract in hand.
Yeah. And that's totally, yep. And that's awesome. If that's what works for them. For me, that felt really uncomfortable. And so like, that's for some people that's more comfortable because they have like a roadmap. Like I'm pretty comfortable talking to people. So, and I'm pretty comfortable in my knowledge now of the industry, but like when I first started, yeah, absolutely. Like I spent so much time trying to perfect my listing presentation and taking this person's presentation and that person's presentation and trying to make it perfect. And I just realized one day that it wasn't working for me. And for some people, that is like the perfect, exact, great way to do it. But it just didn't work for me. Sometimes I wish that it had, because I do like creating that kind of stuff. And so that was part of it for me. And then I just realized I'm wasting time sitting back here trying to create this perfect presentation that if someone brought this to me, it's probably just, I probably wouldn't keep it. So, you know, sometimes, yeah. So I have a whole bunch of like different resources that I have for people as part of a membership group that I'm a member of. And so I've got like a staging resource guide. And so if I know that I'm working with a seller who like loves to decorate their home and like wants to do their staging by themselves, then I'll leave behind my like staging tips guide. If I know like I'm working with a seller who is not going to want to do that and like won't really find value in my staging guide, but they will find value in something else I have to offer. Like, I don't know, I have a seller boot camp of like, this is the things that you need to do, like, regardless of whether you're going to stage it yourself, you got to clean everything out and all of those types of things. I'll leave that behind. And I always leave like the warranty brochure for people to look at. I do generally print a copy of the condition report that even though I send it in an email, I generally give them the condition report to look over just as another reminder, like while I'm sitting there with them, where I can say like, here, this is in here. Did you look over that yet? And a lot of times they're like, no. Yeah. Like, okay, well, here's this, look over this, because you might have questions. I can't help you fill it out, but you might have questions about some of the questions that they're asking, and I can help you with that. And then I'll print like the photo prep sheet. So the stuff that I email to them, I do still print and put in the folder and take to them. If I've got like coupons for like anchor moving and like partner things that I can put in there, like, yeah, like lender information. So I like some of that ad hoc stuff. But that is, I mean, that's something that I'm working on as part of a course that I took this year, is like refining that seller folder of like everything. Some agents will put like a resume in theirs of like, just like bullet points of like a little bit about them as an agent. I think that can be helpful to leave behind for people. But again, most of the time I'm working with people who know me anyways, so they don't really care. They just know me. Like they don't care if I sold 40 houses last year or 5. They just know they will want to use me. So, okay. Are we getting long here? Sorry. See, I knew I was going to do this. First I was like, this is going to be like 10 minutes and no one's going to like, everyone's going to hate it. And then I was like, no, I know myself. I'm going to talk too much.
Well, you have such great information, and I mean, some of the things that you're dropping, I think are interesting in that you're doing it super casually, but there are, techniques underneath it. And you mentioned 2 scripts, right? Like you may have looked through all of those listing packets that you gave up, but by doing that, you internalize what works for you, right? So it's always learn the script so you can go off script and create what is really powerful for you. Love that.
And I do think it's like for some of you who are newer agents, like there is huge value in like reviewing those scripts and like sitting down and going through a listing presentation, because whether it's yours or Katie's or mine or someone else's, like you're going to go through, like Jay Schmidt shared his before, and you're going to go and you're going to pull information from it that like you feel like is valuable to your buyers, and just makes you feel more confident sitting there, like saying, sell homes that are staged, sell whatever the percentage is faster. See, I don't even know the percentage off the top of my head. This is stuff that I review before my meetings, but pulling that stuff out and just feeling like, oh, I'm throwing this number at them, and that makes me feel more confident, even with people, And I also will say that like, this is a total sidebar to this conversation, but not only do I think it's valuable to sit and like look through those presentations, but I think it's super valuable to sit and just listen to someone have the conversation with the seller, whether it's someone like me that does it more informally, or someone that has a more formal listing presentation that maybe speaks to a different buyer or a different seller. That's how you kind of figure out what works for you. And like I said, this is working for me right now, but maybe going forward, if I want to build my business, I'm going to have to work with more cold leads, and then I'm going to have to get more refined in my process. But right now, this is working for me, and hopefully you can take even like one little piece of this, even if it's just the email template, and it helps you in your business. Great. I see another thing in the chat here. Okay, Lisa wants it. So then once we've had that conversation, did I skip a step? I did. Once we have that conversation and I leave their house, like pretty immediately, depending on my day, but definitely within 24 hours, I send them a follow-up email, just thanking them thank you for your time. If there were things that I gave them that they had to do, like here's your to-do list. Let me know if you need any contractor recommendations or any help with anything. And then I get the commitment from them again on the timeline. So like, if we're going to be sending the paperwork, then I'm going to say like, I'll send you the paperwork in a separate email after this. It'll come through DocuSign. These are the documents that you're going to be signing. Cause I also don't like sit down and go line by line. Again, I probably should. Compliance is not going to like to hear this. I don't go line by line through like the contract generally with my sellers unless they want me to, but I do give them a quick explanation of what they're going to be signing and ask them to review and make sure that, all the information is accurate. Everything that's included is listed. Everything that's not, that they're taking with them, that would be a question, is listed as excluded, so that I can transfer that information to the MLS. But that, timeline commitment too. So if they're not signing the paperwork right away, I'll kind of revisit what we discussed with, like, we're looking at putting the house on the market in April. And so I'll touch base with you like maybe once a month from now until then, and just kind of see how things are going. We're going to want to get that contract in place, by this date so that we can get photography and blah, blah, blah. Another thing right now, like if you have people that want to sell in the spring, now is a good time to connect with them and just say, and again, like this can be risky because you're putting money out, but it's a good time to get photos. And I've done that before a lot in the fall. Get the photos done now, the exterior ones at least, even if the interior is not ready, because then you're not talking about snowy photos and stuff like that in February. But hold please. We did skip 7. But now we're back. Okay. Any questions on that email? I did not screenshot. I did not give you a template idea for that one, but I do have that templated, so I can give that to you. Paperwork I do in zip forms and send out via DocuSign and update it in Command, easy peasy. I don't think I've ever had someone want to do paperwork on paper. So I've never had any issue using, even with the oldest people I've worked with, everyone's been okay with DocuSign. So that has worked well for me. I do not, no.
Well, that was in your former, so the previous stuff where you expect paperwork coming
about like what's in the listing contract. Well, again, I'm sorry, compliance, if you're on this. I really don't cover a ton of the actual contract points. I think I just sort of like broad stroke it as we're talking of like the listing contract, kind of like, here's the ins and outs of like what that contract is when you're going to sign it. It's going to, I want you to look over any place where I inputted data to make sure that that's correct. The one thing that I always clarify for people, because I feel like a lot of people are confused on this, is the way the commission structure is written out in the contract. Because it says their commission is going to be 6% plus 295, and then below it, it says that we're going to pay the cooperating brokerages 2.4%. And so sometimes I've had people panic and be like, what is this number? I'm paying 6% plus 2.4. So I have that commission conversation. Again, like I'm working with people I know, so that the commission conversation does not come up very often with me. Or if I do, it's just a confirmation. They're just asking for confirmation of, and I always kind of frame it as like, My listing commission is 3.6%. The buyer's agent will be paid 2.4%. So the total that will come out of your statement at closing is 6%. But yeah, so I don't go like line by line with the contract unless they want to. I mean, I have had the occasional person that like wants to look through it, and then I'll get them a copy ahead of time. Again, like with me, you missed the first, I don't know if you saw it on, I was talking about how my seller folders are very inconsistent. So sometimes I do put a copy of the contract in there. Like, especially if it's someone where I'm like, I might need to get this signed like at the table because I don't trust this person to not like go with Lake Country flat fee. So sometimes I will do that. And I do have a document that I started that sort of like goes through section by section in written form and kind of like explains it in plain language. But I have found that most of the time people just are okay with the fact that like this is just like a boilerplate listing agreement that's state of Wisconsin. We're not really changing much about it. Like this is the time frame. I always tell them like I always do it for at least 6 months because I want to make sure that we're covering the time that the house is going to be on the market and getting it through closing. So I guess I do touch on points of it. I just never really thought about it as like me formally going through line by line of the contract.
And you guys, this is part of developing your expertise. People who are really expert at what they do simplify, right? Simplify, simplify, simplify. And we know contractual language is a little bit obscure sometimes, right? So you take it and you put it into language that people can understand. And the other thing I know about Annie is that she's done a lot of work with the DISC, with Enneagram, understanding people's personality styles. You are going to run into people out there who want that line by line. And you got to be ready to give it to them when you run into them. If you're working with someone who's a high D, they want to bottom line it, tell me what I need to know and get on with it. So that's part of, again, your expertise and memorizing your scripts. And Annie, you do it really well. So.
And I will say, like, most of the time, those people that want to go through it line by line are okay going through it by themselves line by line and just coming to me with questions and not sitting down with me and going through it line by line, or at least that's what I've found in my experience. Because I have definitely had people who are like, okay, my phone rings and they're like, all right, I'm reading through the contract and I have a question about this. And then I was looking at this and I have a question about this. And so it's just, and the contract, that off listing contract, it's really not, I know people get scared by like big, long, like legal documents. It's really pretty self-explanatory. It's not very, maybe that's me being raised by an attorney. And so I just, I hear all those buzzwords all the time and I'm like, or I just would go to my dad and say, what does that mean? And he just tells me like a normal person, and then I can explain it to someone else. It's really easy. I'm a 3-wing 2. I'm an Enneagram 3-wing 2. And I am a DI on the DISC profile. So like bottom line, you got it. Just tell me what you. The number one, Josh wants to know what I feel is the number one best added value I can provide to a home seller. Me personally, just me. I see, this is where I'm bad at sales, Josh. Like I'm super bad at selling myself. Like I'm terrible at telling you why you should use me and not someone else. But I just think that like the value that I've given to sellers is that something that you and Megan can offer them too. And that is that I have a really good eye for seeing a home's potential. And so I can walk into a house and it could be a dog and I could see it for what it actually should look like, done and updated and things like that. And so it's really easy for me to sell that to a buyer. And so if you have a fixer upper, like I love to go in and walk through with a buyer as the listing agent and say like, oh my gosh, can't you imagine like this down and these cabinets, this color and blah, blah, blah. And then people start to get really excited about it. So that's been a value. But I think again, like going back to that one question on my survey about what people are looking for in an agent, you guys, people just want you to be straight with them. Like they just want you to be honest. Like they don't want you to bullshit them. If their house is not worth what it's going to be worth and it's just going to sit, or what they want it to be worth and it's just going to sit on the market, it sucks to have that conversation, but sometimes you have to have it. And sometimes you're not going to get the listing right away because they want to sell it for $925 and it should be at $850. And you know what? That's happened to me. And then 2 months later, I did get the listing because they came back to me and they were like, you were right. And you told us that from the get-go, and now we want you to sell it. And we did. And so that's just, they just don't, I'm really, really, really unfortunate that our industry has gotten a bad rap from a few bad apples, but it just seems like people just want, they just want you to tell it like it is. So.
For sure.
Okay. So once that's done, then I schedule the staging, schedule the photography, sign, install, MLS, all of that sort of like back end admin stuff. Now I'm a solo agent and stupid enough to do all of this stuff myself. Though again, we talk about improving business, and I have used transaction coordination in the past. And then this year I didn't, and quickly remembered why I used it in the past. So I will be doing that again next year, but
Yay.
I do like to, like, I will always enter, I will never have someone enter my listings into MLS because I'm a marketer at heart. And so I love to write the MLS descriptions. So if that's something you struggle with and you need help, please feel free to ask me. I will be happy to help you do that, because that is like setting that scene for a buyer coming in is one of my favorite things to do. And then I start marketing. So I almost always put my listings in delayed for at least a few days before I have them go live to market. But I've gotten really anal about, like, I don't love to put them in delayed before I have photos. Because then I get a million text messages like, when are photos being taken, even if you put it in the comments in MLS. So that I'm trying to work on the timing there, but I don't do any of this generally until the paperwork is signed. Just because you're putting out money and it's just a risk. So if I can avoid it, I do not schedule any of that until the paperwork is signed. And
Once they even tell the sellers, it's like, once this is signed, this is what I'll be doing.
yes, yeah. And that is a conversation that I always have with them when I talk about the timelines.
Yeah.
Was that like, and I make sure people know that like, this is money that I am paying right now out of my pocket. This doesn't get paid at closing.
Yeah.
So, because I feel like it's important people don't realize that, I don't think. And so I feel like that's important for people to know. Like, I mean, I have spent, and Katie, you guys probably have spent a ton of money on staging, like thousands of dollars you're spending out of your own pocket. And if this sucker doesn't sell, you don't get that back unless you have structured your contract in a way that the seller is paying you back if they pull it off the market or whatever. And I feel like it's important for sellers to know that, because they need to know that you have an investment in their house selling. So.
Right.
Yes, that's true. That is another thing. They think that your brokerage is paying for it. Yeah, no, this actually, and I did the listing that I have right now. This is total sidebar, but you guys will think this is interesting. So they had the listing, they had the home listed with an agent of a friend who just like, he says he sells like 40 homes a year, but I had never heard of him because he doesn't work in this marketplace. And it was on the market for several months with 0 showings, not a single showing in July, August. Okay, so that's weird, right? So I took it over, and the seller was like, I'm feeling kind of bad about firing my other agent, my friend. He's been a good friend to me. And I remembered when we sold our lake house, the agent that helped us with that paid a referral fee. And I was like, oh, no. Like, he's like, would you pay a referral fee to my friend? And I said, no, Bill, I will not, because I said, one, you came to me because you know me, and we had talked about me listing your house before you decided to list with your friend. So I said, I don't really feel like in this situation it's a fair, like, I'm happy to pay a referral fee to someone who actually refers the business to me. But I said, I have about $4,000 of my own money into selling your house right now. That has come out of my personal bank account or my business bank account, into like selling your house. And he was like, nah, like, enough said, I get it. No, no need to go any further. So, but at first I was like, oh, you have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. But yeah, so I think it's important to have those conversations because they don't know. They don't know. So anyways, before I digress any further and keep you guys longer than you need to be, here's some of the things I do when it's in delayed status. Again, like social media is really my bread and butter. It's where I do the bulk of kind of all of my business right now, which is a dangerous place to live because of how quickly it can all be taken away from you. So working on that too. But I'll do like social media teasers, and I'm not talking like the post that's like coming soon. Like I will do some of that, but people want to see the house and people want to see the house in real time. And so I'll do like little like snippets behind on stories and stuff like that. And kind of talk it up on stories. Cause this is your opportunity to get like face to cam and talk to people about the house and not just put in a post like coming soon, 4 bedrooms, $450,000. Like that's really nothing more than they're going to get from any real estate site out there when it hits the market. So like you have to like be there to give them the value of like, and this is what helps, I think, get you more business on social media too, is when people see you doing that and talking up a house and like, you're getting really excited about it and you're telling people how great this house is. And then they're like, well, I want her to talk about my house that way. And sellers love to see their houses featured on social media. So I do a lot of that when it's in delayed. And then sometimes I get messages from other agents that say like, just so you know, you can't talk about it until you have the contract signed. And then I always just say, I know that, thank you. It will be in delayed tomorrow. Like people are just trying to help, right? It's never KW agents, just saying that. I also do reverse prospecting in MLS, which sometimes gives you hits, sometimes doesn't. But I always do that. When I do that, I send the emails, but I also try to pick up the phone and call those agents to have the conversation with them about what their buyers are looking for. Sometimes I think I have found that it's actually the brokers that have these like searches set up so that they can share stuff with their agents. But yeah, I mean, that's been helpful. That's been a helpful tool for me too, networking with other agents. And then sometimes I'll do mailers. I do not often do mailers, but sometimes sometimes they are called for and I will do those. And any other suggestions that any of you other seasoned agents have for delayed marketing, I am happy to take them. Because I have personally found that putting something in delayed has been really helpful. To start having those conversations and then just drumming up the demand, creating the demand and getting people in the door. And I think we've gotten out of the habit of having to do much marketing, right? Because we haven't had to do much the last 18 months. And so I am being reminded lately of like that sometimes you got to work a little bit harder for it. So I think that's actually going to be a positive thing about things slowing down a little bit. It'll force us to have to sort of refine some of those things as well. Because for a while it was like you'd put it in there and you'd have 10 showings in 30 minutes. And so that is not going to last forever. So, all right, that's kind of the gist of it. And we are up on time, I think, right? So anyone have any other questions?
We are up on time. I just want to assure everybody before we launch into questions, we'll send the information that Annie provided out to everybody who's on this, and we will be posting this on our YouTube channel. So you'll have the chance to review and kind of dial in again.
And listen to me word vomit for over an hour.
And to you drop fabulous pearls of wisdom onto our people.
Dropping knowledge.
Dropping knowledge. I love it. All right. Well, Annie, I thank you so much for your time and your attention and all of your share today. I think you really have done a great job being an expert here by making it simple and accessible. And you really do perform at a super high level. So glad that you're part of KW and part of our market center. And we just love you to death. Any questions before we let her go?
Do you want to ask yours?
I was just going to ask about the commission. How you handle it.
About commission?
Yeah.
I have discounted my commission 2 times in 4 years. I've regretted it both times. I did not even discount my commission for my parents. They paid full commission. I do not get pushed on it very often. And I think part of that's probably because I'm working with people that I know and they're probably not comfortable pushing me on it. And the times that I've been pushed on it, I just push back. And I'm okay walking away from a listing if they're not wanting to pay me, because I know, for example, like if I'm paying for a full stage, I'm going to be paying over $3,000 to stage the house. And that's a big hit if you're asking me to discount my commission. So if you want to pay for that, then I'll discount my commission $3,000 because it's a wash, but I'm not going to, I mean, it's impossible for me to cut down my level of service. And so that's why I regret the 2 times, because I actually ended up working harder on those deals.
Right.
And I was like, why am I working so hard? Because I can't not do it.
Right, I think it's kind of, if you're nervous about it and, you know, then they see a weak point. So it's like just go through
And
it.
then the last time I discounted my commission, the guy told me like, I don't know, no less than 10 times throughout the process, like, you're worth every bit of 6%. I should be paying you 6%. I'm like, yeah, you should. Let's change that.
Yeah.
Yes, you should. You got it.
Yeah. Like you should, and I said that to him several times. I was like, you actually should. You should actually probably be paying me 7%.
Yes.
That's my mental.
Yeah.
always tell people to help me snap.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, I'm thinking about making t-shirts because I'm the same way, I over service.
Yeah.
The whole scope creep, we've had that discussion many times on our teams. I'm sure directed at me, because I have lots of family and friends that are my
Yep.
initial clients. And I can't say.
I know. I did feel bad not discounting for my parents. I mean, they're my parents. And my dad gives me free legal advice all the time, but
Christmas is
he's
coming.
got
Annie.
a lot of speeding tickets.
Yeah.
So
All good.
and I just sneak that in there.
Yeah, they don't know.
All right. Do you want me to stop this share, Diana?
Yeah,
No?
that
Are
would be
we-
great. And
Okay.
then, yep. And you guys, again, we'll post this on YouTube. Thank you so much for your time. Those who are in the room, feel free to take as much time as Annie will give you, but we are we're gonna let you go from our Zoom here. And thanks again, you guys.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.